So I'm going to go ahead and start the video tonight. The one I talked about yesterday, talking about body image. So here I am in all my tattooed, scarred glory. And my nephew Shane wanted to see my haircut because I used to I'm trying to get a good shot in there. I'm not going to be able to, though. I used to be I used to be able to do a lot of things, but anywho, I used to have my hair really long for many, many years. And, I thought like that I really liked it. I had it real long when I was in high school, middle school, being a product of the 70s. And so it was just natural for me to do that. It also was kind of artistic to me, like that was the artist. Where I have to go here. Oh, there it is. That's the other profile of the haircut. But unfortunately, what I forgot, I live in a log cabin, by the way. I'm a wood guy who lives in a real log cabin, which I think is pretty cool. And sometimes I can get pretty deep, and that's just the way I am. And I make no apologies for it to anyone. But, it's no coincidence I ended up here. The universe has been taking care of me for a very long time. So, having said that, this is the ceiling. There's the loft area up there. There's the messy kitchen because I'm still moving in. And the messy living room, which I'm actually living in. Because there was some black mold in my room, which is the only bedroom in the house. Look at the size of my TV. It's like a 60-inch screen. And the couch, bed, is like 8 feet away from it. It's so cool. There's some of my art up here. I plan to move more of it in here. But that's one of my wall hangings. Buckeye maple burl. Put some blue dye in it. And sanded it off to get that effect. The grain pops out. I just love doing that stuff. I mean, makes my heart sing, my spirit fly. And this is a sculpture I did. It was just a stock piece of mahogany that I turned, and I burned the center of it after I turned it and I used I don't know if you can see the texture there, but I used a texturing tool to texture the center. And then out here along the edge, I used the torch and burned a little bit. Then I don't know what the hell this thing is in the center, but I found it in my shop somewhere. And I thought, wow, that really looks cool. So that went in there. And that's black ebony. The little feet in between the piece and the monkey pod stand on the bottom. And this little horn looking thing up top is perote from Mexico. I have a couple of big slabs of that. You know, so there was some Japanese inspiration in there. I'm a big fan of George Nakashima's. Yeah. So I'm still trying to get settled. This is the beginning of the video, you know. And like I said, I was inspired by a friend of mine to do the video and show you me physically, talk to you, about my journey. And I was in a documentary about the journey that myself and several other burn survivors took. It was called Trial by Fire, Lives Reforged. So I was very fortunate to do that. I've been very fortunate to work with other burn survivors and have the money that it took to go to therapy and work with a couple of really good trauma therapists. And I just had some awesome people and do have a lot of awesome people in my life. So this isn't my journey. This is a journey of hundreds and hundreds of people who have been a part of my life for a very long time. And some of them aren't here anymore, sadly, but they are still here with me in my heart. And I carry them with me. And this is one of the reasons I decided to do this. I have some more processing that I'm doing around the grief of a lot of different things in my life, period. Oh, shit. See, now I'm going to leave that in there because I'm 61 and God knows I killed a lot of brain cells in my day. Oh, my God. Sometimes I can make myself laugh harder than another person can. Anyhow, I get lost sometimes. I thought I was dictating like I do a text message. And I threw in the period there like it was the end of the sentence. Jesus. I hope you guys find that as entertaining as I do. Anywho, I'm not embarrassed by that stuff anymore. Carried a lot of shame with me as a kid. I always got embarrassed, not just for myself, but for other people. And, you know, I'm probably going to have to cut this video up in pieces because it's going to be long. I can already see that. So it's already 10 minutes long. And these are my back of my arms, my forearm. and a close-up of my wrists and my chest. I don't mind getting emotional and being vulnerable. But I have to pause so I just don't break down completely, but that might happen too, and that's okay. It was not a dramatic pause. I was trying to let my emotions settle because, you know, when you grieve, you don't just grieve in a box, you know, and it's like you grieve and then you're done. That's just nonsense. It's a lifelong process, you know, and I don't know that any of us who have been traumatized, and I think most human beings on this planet have been traumatized to some extent or the other, even if they haven't been through the kind of trauma that I've been through. Trauma is trauma. I got a lot of thoughts on that, a lot of experience with it. I've done a lot of work in that area. So I think it's pretty cool that you can't get what I have out of a book, although I have read a lot of books, mostly on spirituality, that have helped me come to a greater understanding of myself, my place in the world, and this whole journey. And as you can tell, I do not speak in a straight line. I hop around, period, because I don't have a script. I don't want to have a script. I'm not trying to have a script. I'm just being spontaneous. I think that goes along with the ability to be vulnerable and be intimate. When I script something, or when anybody scripts something, it takes away from the spontaneity. And if that's not there, then I think it makes it more difficult to get to the vulnerability and the intimacy. I'm just moving around here, so move with me if you want. So, yeah. And you can see I lost both of my ears. I had one reconstructed, and back when I was injured in 1979, it was a miracle times 1,000 that I even survived, or anybody who was ever injured as badly as I was back then or before then. If you survived, it was a real miracle. But the technology they had, nothing like it is today. I tell people what they did back then was tantamount to medieval torture. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful to be alive, and I'm grateful to all the people that saved my life. But that does mean that I can't use that word to describe what it was I went through. It was like medieval torture. Not that I've ever been tortured medievally, but I can imagine that's what it's like. And I could get real graphic. I don't know that I will, but I will describe some of what happened in that burn unit, because I do want people to hear and know. I'll even post some pictures of me online for the first time ever. This is the first time that I'll ever post any of my early pictures from when I was burned, when I was in my early 20s. And they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. I think the pictures that are as graphic as mine speak a whole lot more than 1,000 words. They're visceral. You look at them and you can feel the pain. Unless you're a masochist or a sadist. Is it sadist or sadist? Anyway, unless you're into pain, it's a lot. But I want people to see. I want them to understand. And I should probably go back and do something at the beginning of this, and I will, because this may just turn into something that I use on YouTube or something, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is mine. No one may use any of this footage without my permission for any public not sure what the word would be, but I don't want people copying it and putting it on the internet. I don't know how I can stop them from doing that, but I think that legally there may be a way to protect myself. But you know what? That's not really important. Maybe it'll help somebody. And if somebody uses it to ostracize or make fun, that's okay too. That's not my shit. I refuse to take other people's shit on anymore. Too old. Been through too much. Period. So, we'll move on with the tour. I'm standing in front of my stove now because I haven't eaten since this afternoon. I was in my studio all day. I haven't had hardly any time to be in the studio for very long times. A very long time for me is like, month and a half, 2 months, because I bought the house, sold my other house, moved all my stuff into storage, moved what I could in here, and then a lot of running around, a lot of stuff going on. This past 14, 15 months have been an incredible challenge to me. A whole lot of things that have gone on in this last 15 months. Been tough. Been tough. And it's probably one of the reasons that so much of this stuff is coming up for me too. There's a lot of different pieces to it, man. None of this stuff is cut and dry. You don't start at point A and then go to point B and then point C. You definitely don't start at point A and go to point Z. Okay? There's no rhyme or reason for real to grieve. From what I've read, from what I understand from my own experience and other people's experience, grief just is what it is. And you don't know when it's going to come on, and you don't know if you've actually ferreted it out, all the pain or all the issues that surround the kind of trauma that I've endured. I'm here to tell you today, 40 years later, I was 20 years old when this happened to me. I'm 61 years old, that I haven't uncovered it all. And obviously it's still coming up because here I am telling you about it. So on with the tour. And you can see I lost almost half my nose. And they tried to reconstruct it. And they did, actually. It was probably, I probably lost it like up to here. This part here, the area, part of the nostril, that's reconstructed. Because it was just burnt right off along here. Luckily, the cartilage was still there. So they were able to graft. I lost a lot of those little hairs in your nose, the cilia. I had inhalation damage. Both my lungs were burnt. I had endocarditis, which is an infection in the valve in your heart. I had pleurisy, pneumonia, double pneumonia. Just about everything that could kill you. And that's the biggest threat to a burn survivor. Is infection, because that's what your skin is. It's a barrier against infection. That's why when you get cut, it gets infected. So, anywho, I'm a fortunate guy. I'm probably the most fortunate human being that I know. My lips are not my lips. They work really well, and I'm grateful for them. But you can see the top one here is thinner than the bottom one. And what they essentially did was they went inside my mouth and they cut and they rolled the inside of my mouth out to make my upper lip, and the bottom part of my gum they rolled out. Or not my gum, I'm sorry. My inside my mouth they rolled it out to make the lower lip. You know, and you know they captured it pretty good. I mean, I'm not 100% satisfied, but I know people have never been burned who aren't 100% satisfied with the way they look, so I'm doing okay. You know, you can see patches of skin because I've had 72 reconstructive surgeries. Actually, 35 of them were just, surgeries where they were doing grafts, harvesting skin from my back, my legs, my buttocks, and grafting that skin on me. Before they did that, they had to, and here comes some of the graphic information, they had to literally remove anything that still remained of my skin. And the way they do that is a process called debridement. And that's probably the closest thing to medieval torture that there was. Today they put people in medically induced comas and they don't feel, well, I don't know if they feel it or not. I'm sorry. they don't remember it, as far as I can tell, or from the best of my knowledge. But I do. I was awake for every second of it for weeks. And any burn survivors that endured that understands what I'm talking about. It's literal torture. They can't give you enough narcotics. Yeah. I'm not sure why they don't do it under anesthesia back then, or why they didn't do it under anesthesia, but hey, doesn't matter now, does it? Shit. Anyway, so my eyelids were sewn shut in the burn unit. And once again, you know, these are pieces of skin, my lower eyelids and my upper eyelids. What they do here is a surgical technique. It's called, I just had it in my head. See, I told you the brain's gone. Tarasoptomy. Okay, so they sewed my eyelids shut so that they didn't disappear, basically, and just shrink to nothing, which is what happens with burns. Everything contracts. And while they were sewn shut, they cut them, and they took small grafts of skin. Right here, if you can see that scar, it looks like I slit my wrist. I did, and the doctors did that to get a piece of skin out of there. I'm not sure if that was from my nose. I think it was. I think that was from my nose. I think I can show you later, but they use the softest, most supple skin on a human's body, which is in the groin area. It stretches more, it's softer. Unfortunately, it grows pubic hairs, and I could make a joke about this, but this might be a family audience. But anyway, so they did that with my lower eyelid, my upper eyelids. I don't know if you can see it real good, but you know, this is always like this. It always looks like that. I've gotten used to it. I have some eyelashes on my upper eyelids. They're kind of messed up. They get in my eyes sometimes. It really hurts. There are less eyelashes on the lower lids, but there's enough. Yeah, I was extremely fortunate because the blast, the crude oil, hit me right here, and then covered the rest of my body, 90% of my body. But the initial impact was here, my face, my neck, my chest, my shoulders, my arms. Once it goes around my back, around my sides. I mean, listen, I lost my armpits. That's how badly I was burned. You know, what I was showing you on my chest earlier, that skin on top of bone, there was no muscle left there. If that had been my hand, I wouldn't have a hand anymore. Most likely. My thumb is really messed up. but it works really good. And you see that part there on the knuckle where there's like a dimple in the scarring there. That there's a graft on my whole thumb. And the thumbnail never actually came back like a healthy nail because of the scarring underneath of it. But they grafted the thumb, and that place right there on my knuckle did not want to heal. And because of the joint, anytime you have movement like that, the graft moves, and if it doesn't stay stationary and moves around, then it can't take root. So there was a time there where they said, we may have to amputate your thumb. And there's some things that happened in the burn unit. I can't tell you, obviously, if they were real or they weren't real, or some of the things that I think I might have said. Maybe I was just thinking, or maybe I made them up afterwards because I know that's what I probably would have said. But what I think I said was, if you're going to cut my thumb off, cut my hand off. And, you can see how badly my hand was burned too, but man, I'll tell you what, this right here is what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. The only other primate that has one of these are apes and chimpanzees, I think. But without that opposing thumb, you got 4 fingers. Now, I'm saying that, and that was just my 20-year-old traumatized brain thinking that. And what I've seen in the last 40 years by being around other burn survivors who have been just, I can't even tell you how horribly burned they are. But I met a young man who had almost no fingers. They were burned down like this. And guess what he was? He was a woodworker. And he made bandsaw boxes. And he was so excited to tell me all about it. And I don't think he has any idea. I hope that I told him. I don't really remember. But, man, I was so impressed by that dude. Like, so impressed, People think, wow, you're really something. Okay. I mean, we're all really something, but there's always somebody worse off than you. And I don't need anybody to be worse off than me for me to be grateful or any of that, or to say I'm fortunate, but I'm grateful and I'm fortunate. Sorry about my rotating my head here, but my neck is really tight from standing up all day. I just had that back injection this morning. And I know, maybe I should sit down. But first, I'm going to make something to eat, and I'll be back. Chill for a minute. Oh, wait a minute. You have no place to go. You're like me. You're doing social distancing, and I'm not making any jokes about that. I'll talk about that a little bit, too. Stay tuned.